Love is the spirit of this church, and service is the calling. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Jackie?
We, the congregation of Vista Grande Community Church, United Church of Christ in Colorado Springs, Colorado, declare ourselves to be open and affirming. We strive to be a congregation that includes all persons, embracing differences of sexual orientation, gender and its expression, marital status, family makeup, age, mental and physical health and ability, racial and cultural identity or background, and educational and socioeconomic status. We welcome all to share in the life, leadership, ministry, fellowship, worship, sacraments, responsibilities, blessings, and joys of our congregation's life in Christ. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here.
So this morning, for our opening words, Claire and I would like to share a writing by Stephen Kendrick.
We are here to face the truth about ourselves, about these faiths that we love and the ways they presently serve others in the world,
as well as to open ourselves to ways it can be better, and more joyfully reflect our potential and our core values.
We want to know the ways we are bound to one another, as well as to larger religious movements normally beyond our sight and our vision.
We say we are open and diverse, yet it is too easy to feel stuck in old paths and stubborn habits, reflecting not so much tradition as our comfort.
We want to answer the call to service, to a world that needs our message, our hope, and our revived energy.
We are gathered to learn, to unlearn, to hear, and to move forward. So may it be.
Amen.
Amen. So come, my friends, let us worship together as we invite the sound of the bell and a brief period of silence and silent meditation.
So I'm going to just kind of reflect a little bit on where my head's at today and how I'm thinking about where all of us being here together and where we're going and how we're getting there. And some of those words may be feel a little prickly to folks, but I just want to let you know before I get going that if you're having that experience, it's not about making you uncomfortable as much as it is reminding us all of our greatness. So we are gathered here today to move forward in our own journeys on this united journey to help others move forward. And for me, it's a bit of a challenge sometimes to just stay focused on the Pride of Pride Fest without looking at the pride and the things that I've moved forward through in other aspects of my life. So, so my reflection today is I'm reminded of many aspects of life and the life of other people who are struggling to just be who they are, and in a way that does not diminish their ability to show up on their own journey and be the force and be the love and the compassion that we all need to be and get to be. I'm reminded of that in the way of how we have to be with our families or not be with our families because of people's confusion and the constant oppression. I'm reminded of that in the ways that we are ignored, which is why I have on all these colors today. not so much just for you, but for myself, because I will not be invisible today. And if I'm not invisible today, I cannot be invisible tomorrow when there is no parade. And all of you beautiful, wonderful, compassionate, loving people aren't standing by my side. I reflect on, you know, just the ways that we are ostracized and oppressed by the powers of enforcement in this country, whether they be governmental laws or whether they be just the laws of law enforcement in the moment, on the spot. I reflect on that in my own experiences time and time again, still today in, you know, the 21st century, of being targeted by law enforcement. But at the same time, I reflect on all the people who are there every time I encounter the oppression. Not necessarily in the moment, but when it's so tough, when it's so hard, when the oppression hits so hard that I forget my own greatness. I reflect on the folks who come forward, stand by my side, and remind me that I am bigger than, greater than, always have been greater than those who target me. Because what happens when I don't remember that is I get confused about everyone else and their lack of standing up and support and being there. And in that confusion, I get smaller and smaller and smaller. And none of us get to be small. None of us are small. Excuse me. We are big. We have been, you know. The divine just made us that way. It's not questionable. It's not negotiable. It's not arguable. And because we are big, and because we always have been, then we're supposed to be doing big things. Okay? And my big thing that I need to do may look and seem bigger or smaller than anybody else's, but the whole point is that we have to be big. Because if we're not big, we're not true, not only to others, but especially to ourselves. So I reflect on the fact that I know this, even in the midst of my fear, even in the midst of my own confusion about being big, that I know this to be true about everyone. And I hold you to that greatness. And on a personal level, I hold you to the fact that I expect that of you. I hold you to the fact that I need that from you.
Amen. Yeah.
And I hold you to the fact that no matter what, or how angry I may seem, or how reserved I may be, I still love you. I still have compassion for you in your confusion, in your fear. Because if I don't, then I go nowhere. So I'm glad you're all here today. I hope to see as many of you as you can possibly figure out to be there. And I will hold in my heart that if you can't be there today, that you are there in your hearts, and that you too are pushing against your own selves and your own comforts to figure out how to be big and great. Thank you.
There are religious people out there who would be puzzled, if not outraged, about using an interfaith service to celebrate LGBTQ pride.
Yeah.
And there are LGBTQ people out there who find it ridiculous, if not appalling, that after what religion has done to our community, any of us should remain engaged with it. But here we sit this morning, two religious communities celebrating an interfaith pride service. And to me, this is the most wonderful thing we could be doing. Unitarian Universalism affirms the inherent worth and dignity of all people and has a long history of specifically welcoming LGBTQ people who are part of what we call the interconnected web of all existence. The United Church of Christ has a seriously and similarly long history of LGBTQ inclusion, as it follows the one who welcomes all, inviting people on the Jesus way of compassion, generosity, faith, hope, and love. I'm not a doctrinal Christian, but the Jesus I love and admire was all about breaking down walls in the name of love, also known as God. UUism, with its focus on covenant over creed, seeks to cross boundaries and bring all kinds of people together. People who differ theologically, politically, in who and how they love, in how they understand their gender identity, but who at the end of the day take care of each other, seek to grow in wholeness, and work to transform the world until justice rolls down like waters. Today we celebrate LGBTQ pride, those of us who are in fact queer in some way, and those of us who are good allies. While all years bring attacks on LGBTQ people, this year in particular we cannot celebrate without mourning simultaneously the Pulse Club attack, with its 49 deaths and 53 injuries of people who were mostly LGBTQ and mostly Latinx. But we can celebrate the love, compassion, and righteous fierceness found in the wide variety of responses to the shooting. And we can celebrate our own love, compassion, and work for justice in this area and many other areas. And today our celebration is an interfaith celebration. What does that mean? It means that just as each of our religious traditions have in their own ways been about tearing down walls and extending radical hospitality, today we welcome each other. Last week we broke bread together. This week we join in lifting up the LGBTQ community, letting both our differences and commonalities be part of the celebration. I've watched and participated in many pride parades and have seen all sorts of organizations try to hang together during the march, separating themselves from other groups. It makes a kind of sense. One group marches, then the next. Those watching from the street can cheer each separate group on. But today we are two groups together, organizations that will mix and mingle on the walk, talking to each other, perhaps yelling chants together, and getting to know each other better. Today, we join a march that I think Jesus would find beautiful. Today, we join a march that celebrates one particular thread of the interdependent web of all existence. How wonderful that we march down these streets with our boundaries down, modeling what UUs call the beloved community and Christians call the kingdom of God. Today I light our chalice in honor of our new connection, our shared time together this morning, and our walk on the way of love that will follow.
You know, all the colors are beautiful, and that's really what we're celebrating today, isn't it? That each and every one of us are unique individuals and unique people. And we've got two churches here today. Isn't that cool? So we thought we might tell you a little bit of how that came about, because you might not know the story. I don't know. Do you already know the story? Come here. No, come here. No, come here. Too late. Come here. Okay, ready, go. Okay.
I think they came together a couple years ago. When they met, when they came together as Unitarians and Universalists.
Oh, that's what she's thinking.
Okay. Well, you know, it's funny that you should say that, because we were a part of that story, but years ago, we used to be together. Did you know that? Yeah.
Really
yeah, it was really long ago. Dana was just like your age.
Way back in 1825.
So we started out together, and then different ideas kind of took us apart in some ways, but it kept us together in other ways. Now, if you have two groups of people, in this case, two different churches, who are trying to come together, what do you think would be really, really important for them to get along?
What do you think? Come here. Come here,
I'm old too, so I can't move to you.
I think it would be trust.
Trust.
Maybe respect.
Respect. Suddenly, I feel very small. What else would you need?
Maybe to learn about each other.
To learn about each other? What else?
Love.
Love is good.
To care about each other.
To care about each other. Wow.
I know.
We didn't even have to plan anything
know.
for a sermon, right?
I know it.
So that's pretty cool. So we have respect, love, caring for one another, getting to know each other, trust. I mean, that's all cool stuff, right? And really necessary for a relationship. Personally, I think we all need to like chocolate too. Would you agree with that?
Would you agree with that? So, some of us can't have chocolate.
Coffee. We all agree on coffee.
No. Yeah, well, some of us can't have that either. But we all
Not the kids.
Not the kids.
Not the kids.
Ice cream?
I'll eat your share.
How about gluten-free carrot cake?
How about water?
Water for life.
What about milk?
So that's why we're coming together, because we have a lot of common values, and you just named a lot of common values that are really important, and I think everyone here really resonates. Did you hear everyone clapping and you know, commenting that you're absolutely right? We need all these things. We need trust. We need respect for one another. We need to get to know one another. We need love. Emma, which one did you say? You said care for one another, right? All of that. And so we're developing that with each other right now as we speak. So thanks for being a part of all of those things and making all of that happen, and we'll look forward to seeing how it goes. Okay.
Will you help us remember those things?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Will you remind each of us?
Sometimes grown-ups forget stuff.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And so if you could help us remember, that would be really helpful. Because you have to be just as much a part of this as we are, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I agree.
I know, it's a big job. We'll remind each other, okay, Emma?
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're not going to sing you out because you're going to hang with us for the rest of the service, okay? All right. Spirit of life and love, we pray for the courage to step out of the patterns of division and polarization and instead travel a new path, demonstrate a new way that brings healing to festering wounds and compassion to those who are feeling close to the end of their rope. For the courage of our open hearts, the courage of our open hearts is the greatest gift that we can give to each other, to ourselves, and to the world.
Divine mystery, whose thoughts are not our thoughts and whose ways are most definitely not our ways. We come to you on this morning of celebration, this morning of joy and exuberance, while at the same time holding the tension of all the pain that has woven its way through our communities once again. We find it difficult to sit in that place that calls us to be compassionate, that place that calls us to stand on the side of love, but also to recognize the righteous anger that causes us to move toward positive and just action. Help us to hold on to just enough of that anger so that we can be the work of your hands, your heart, and your voice in this crazy, chaotic, and sometimes overwhelmingly violent world. Remind us that in the midst of all this chaos, you are with us in many ways. You are with us in the voices we hear with friends. You are with us in the breezes that blow. You are with us in every part of nature and all of creation. And we take this blessing that is offered as a way to hold and nourish our souls in the midst of the work that you are asking us to do. Like the joy of the sea coming home to shore, may the relief of laughter rinse through your soul. As the wind loves to call all things to dance, may your gravity be lightened by grace. Like the dignity of moonlight restoring the earth, may your thoughts incline with reverence and respect. As water takes whatever shape it is in, so free may you be about who you become. As silence smiles on the other side of what is said, may your sense of irony bring perspective. As time remains free of all that it frames, may your mind stay clear of all that it names. May your prayer of listening deepen enough to hear the depths and the laughter of our divine beloved.
May it be so.
Amen.
Amen.
Driving in this morning, my daughter, Hannah, who I promised I would embarrass in public, asked me if I ever get nervous before a sermon. I said sometimes, and today I was nervous for two reasons. One is all of the goings on always get me all turned up, and so I bring that today. And the other, you laugh. I prepared nothing. And she said, "What? You're going to pull a Sarah Palin?"
Hello, daughters.
Nothing like putting things right in perspective, huh? I can't tell you how many times I've had things run through my head or how many things I've had running through my head. My congregation will tell you that I don't know when to stop reading or listening to stuff. And so even on mornings when I'm rolling in here and NPR is playing, I'm like, oh, that would be a great sermon. It's painful at times though, and it's hard to find a path, a way of sort of putting out there what should be put out there. My heart is broken. It's ironic, however, that in the midst of it being broken and at the risk of my ability to grab on to that righteous anger that really is love if we divert it and use it the right way, I've also been called out on something, and that really ticks me off. The other night, I had the privilege of attending the choirs that were downtown at First United Methodist. So we had the Gay Men's Choir, and then the Gay Men's Choir from Denver, and then the original Gay Men's Choir from San Francisco. I know, right? They were raising money for two things. One was Citizens Project, and the other was for Orlando and the services that were needed. And there was a representative there from Orlando, and she got up to speak, and she must give this speech 1,000 times, and yet tears come to her eyes every time. And she said something that I found incredibly disturbing, and it makes me mad that I found it disturbing. She talked about the 49 people who were killed. There were 50 people killed. And in that space, I realized that we always forget the soul that was hurting and anger and anguished and beyond any kind of rationale, who is the perpetrator. We are so worried about finding a reason for things to happen, a reason for things and why they happen, that we just want to be black and white in our issue. We want to say, it's this reason or it's this reason, it's this person, it's that illness or it's this illness. And makes it very easy for us to forget the systemic issues that bring the issues to bear to begin with.
So I think we all are feeling much of what Claire's expressing right now. Would that be true?
Yes.
Yeah. I know I certainly am as well, and I am increasingly feeling a deep sense of urgency. With every tragedy that happens, the heartbreak and the sense of urgency both rise. I do my best to not give in to giving up, but that presents itself as well. Total despair. And so I grasp, as I know many of you do as well, how do we move forward? What can we do about this? What can our two little congregations do about something like this? And the answer that I keep coming to get up with is that we have to look at things differently. If we want the rest of the world to depolarize these situations and not see them as so black and white, we need to begin to look at them differently as well. So when we see shootings and protests happening in the support of Black Lives Matter, asking ourselves that initial question of, do I agree with this or not, is perhaps not the best place to begin. And when we see policemen gunned down in Dallas, Texas, as they are working, helping a Black Lives Matter demonstration happen, do we suddenly take sides and say, well, it was the Black Lives Matter movement that caused this? And yet, I think if you feel the pressures I feel, we feel compelled that we are supposed to be taking sides. And yet that is exactly what we do not do. We see into the complexity. We see into the pain and suffering of the people who are pulling the triggers. We see the complexity of gun control issues. None of these issues are black and white. And yet we will never find a way forward until we live justice through love. Love in the public is justice. So today we are taking action by participating in the Gay Pride Parade. And today, as we walk together, I have one question for all of us to ask ourselves. Where do we find our hope? Where do you find your hope?
Well, I actually find it in the history of the alphabet community. You know what I mean when I say alphabet community? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
GLBTQ.
Yeah, I can't even remember it all, so I'm glad you can. I came out in the 80s, and when I came out, you were gay or you were lesbian. We had no room for them there bisexuals. There was a desperation to that because you had to have an identity in the midst of oppression. And so you formed that identity, and if somebody didn't fit into those definitions, then they were fence sitters, and they were actually detrimental to the cause. And then the whole transgender movement came about, and that really threw us for a loop. But what really kind of brought folks together was the AIDS crisis. That recognition that, wow, we cannot afford anymore to be this divisive. We don't have the luxury of being this or that in order to fit into this community, because the world at large puts us all together. And then there's this transformation that occurred where all of a sudden it was like, no, this is not useful to us. It's not useful for us to continue to be divisive, to continue to be black and white, and not allow for that color, not allow for that grayness and that diversity and that beauty to come together. And in so doing, instead of finding fear, finding strength. And so it was the coming together of diversity that actually built up that strength. For me, that's where the hope lies. The more we push each other away, the less hope exists. The more we confront our differences, the more hope there is to be found.
Right. And isn't that where we can take all of this today? Not only do we have more hope by our two congregations coming together, but as I have mentioned before, wouldn't it be amazing if we were the people who created some kind of an institute, some kind of a process to help all of the different sides of issues come together in honest, meaningful, deep, and healing conversation? What would that be like?
It would mean that they'd have to work really hard.
Yeah, and we would too. That's a vision I can believe in. And that gives me hope. And the successes that have happened with gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, equality over the past few years especially have been astounding, and that gives me hope. I have to be honest, I guess I was a pessimist, but I really didn't think I was going to see marriage equality in my lifetime. I worked with an interfaith group, the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado in Denver, to lobby for civil unions a few years ago, just a few years ago, and was there to help perform the very first civil unions in Denver. And people were saying then, oh, just give us a few months. It's going to be marriage equality here in Colorado. And it was. And it was. My friends, when we do come together with all of our stripes and all of our colors, we truly can change the world, and we truly can make a difference. But words don't make it so. Actions are what it takes. My friends, we are the ones we have been waiting for. Nurtured
by this community, inspired by all that we share, may our actions carry this love forward into our lives and into the world every day.
I invite you to reach out and connect with those around you as we share these closing words.
Hope rises. It rises from the heart of life, here and now, beating with joy and with sorrow.
And hope longs. It longs for good to be affirmed, for justice and love to prevail, for suffering to be alleviated, and for life to flourish in peace.
Hope remembers. It remembers the dreams of those who have gone before and reaches for the connection with them across the boundaries of death.
And hope acts. It acts to bless, to protest, and to repair. May we, my friends, make it so.
Amen.
Amen.